5 Navy SEALs took her weapons away. 81 seconds later, they were all on the ground, and she never fired a single shot. They'd stripped her M4, unclipped the holster from her thigh, and taken the sidearm too, leaving both pistol wells empty. They thought she was helpless. Ward wasn't a SEAL. She was a staff sergeant in the Army, once embedded with JSOC on missions that didn't exist on paper but today. Her opponents were 5 Navy SEALs in joint training at Ravenholt. The bet had started over coffee in the hangar bay, where the smell of jet fuel hung in the morning heat. 5 minutes later, they were strapping on simunitions and walking toward the modular Killhouse on the edge of the Forward Operating Base, from the observation deck above. Instructors leaned on the railing with arms crossed. Below, the SEALs moved with the swagger of men used to winning. Mercer, the lieutenant in charge, had grinned like he already knew the outcome. 3 minutes, the chief petty officer had said. She doesn't make it halfway through the first room. The others chuckled, trading glances like predators circling an easy kill. Ward's face betrayed nothing. She adjusted the cuffs of her training gloves, the faint scarring along her knuckles catching the light for half a second before she flexed her hands and let them hang loose at her sides. The rules were simple. The SEALs were the assault team. She was an unarmed observer, if she was tagged by a sim round. The drill was over, if she disarmed any of them. It counted as a kill. Outside, the sun hammered down on Ravenholt's steel and concrete, turning the air above the tarmac into a wavering mirage. Inside, the Killhouse was a maze of narrow hallways and plywood walls corners designed to trap. Choke points meant to kill momentum. The whistle hadn't even blown yet, and the air was already thick with the tension of unspoken wagers. On the deck above, someone muttered, "This is going to be over fast. Before we start, you're watching Stories Unseen. Where in the world are you watching from? Tell us below, we read them all." The whistle shrieked. Boots slammed against plywood. 5 operators poured into the first corridor, rifles up, eyes scanning for threats. Ward followed 3 steps behind, her pace unhurried, her gaze steady. She knew what they did in 180 seconds was an eternity, if you knew how to use it. The hangar bay doors stood yawning open, sunlight pouring across the floor in long, bright lanes that ended at the mouth of the modular Killhouse. Inside the plywood maze, corners were cut to punish sloppy footwork, and the shadows between walls waited like sprung traps. The air smelled like gun oil and old paint, with the clean bite of the morning breeze sliding in from the flight line. 5 SEALs staged in the ready area, helmets tucked against ribs, rifles slung. Lieutenant Brax Mercer didn't posture or pace. He just watched the floor plan taped to the wall until he knew it by heart. Beside him, Chief Petty Officer Leon Dre cinched his sling and checked his breacher again. The movement as automatic as breathing. SO2 Troy Varden and SO2 Milo Rinn shared the kind of quick grin that telegraphed confidence without a word. SO3 Jace Morrow rolled his shoulders under the plate carrier and kept his eyes on the first doorway like it might jump. From the catwalk that ringed the bay, bodies leaned into the Rail Army Rangers, Marine Raiders, a couple of Delta guys, even a pair of PJs who'd wandered over between events. Their conversation was low and edged with curiosity. The Army sergeant was going in unarmed, with SEALs in the Killhouse. No wonder the catwalk was full. Major Tristan Cole stepped to the line, clipboard tucked under one arm, voice carrying without a shout. Exercise parameters. 5-person assault team. Ward moves last as observer, unarmed. Time limit 3 minutes. Simunition only. If you take a hit, you're out. A disarm counts as a kill. Any safety violation, this drill stops. He let the echo settle, then added the part nobody argued with. All personnel will wear full PPE simunitions mask, throat and groin protection. No firing within 1 meter to the face. Keep it safe so you can keep it real. Mercer glanced over his shoulder. Stack on me. Tight corners. Don't get lazy at the turns. Dre's mouth ticked. Try not to get lost back there. Sergeant. Ward didn't answer. She seated the mask, tugged the chin strap, flexed her gloved hands once, and let her breathing fall into a steady 4 count. They moved to the chalked box at the entry. Mercer at point. Dre second, Varden third, Rin fourth, Morrow on rear security. Ward ghosting 5 paces behind the stack in the observer slot, close enough to see everything, far enough to be ignored when the door blew. Boots thudded on rubber matting. Quiet at first, then swallowed by the ambient hum of the hangar. Cole's voice drifted down again, flat as a metronome. Objective is the green crate in the center room. Confirm comms, confirm masks, confirm safeties. Clicks traveled the line, thumbs checked selectors, slings tightened. On the catwalk. Somebody murmured. She won't last to the second room. Someone else said, you've never seen her move. Cameras came up phones, helmet cams, a handheld on a shoulder strap. A red tally light winked on from above the entry, painting a tiny dot on the floor. Ward's eyes didn't leave the first corridor. She tracked the way daylight poured past the door frame and broke into bars across the plywood, the way the shadows stuttered where the HVAC grills rattled. Blind spots lived right next to those bright panes of light. People forgot that. She didn't. Mercer lifted a fist. The line tightened. 3 minutes, Dre muttered, mostly to the men in front of him. In and out. Varden and Rin bumped forearms once. A ritual, more than a promise. Morrow exhaled and fixed his world to the back of Rin's helmet. Cole raised the whistle. The hangar seemed to hold its breath. The Killhouse did not. It waited. Final check. Cole said, this is a breach and clear, not a brawl. Maintain muzzle discipline. Weapon control is king. Ward rolled her shoulders once. A tiny reset no one noticed. The whistle screamed. Mercer drove the point. Breacher up. And the first panel slammed inward with a report that ricocheted through the maze. Dre slid on his shoulder, taking the near corner. Varden peeled to the far. Rin knifed the center seam for the next door. Morrow flowed in last. Muzzle high, rear guard tight. Ward crossed the threshold a heartbeat later and let the light swallow her. From the catwalk, the crowd leaned in as one organism. The seal stack moved like a single animal. Efficient and fast, the kind of speed that suffocated a room before it could bite. The soundscape folded into rhythm boots on plywood. The rasp of nylon. A breacher's thunk. A glove smacking a frame to hook a pull. Ward didn't slot into their wake. She bled to the left, hugging the wall just outside the cone of Mercer's muzzle, and let the first turn come to her. The lanes of light were useful. The dark between them was better. In that dark, gear creaked. In that dark, balance shifted. In that dark, people stopped checking their 6. Cole watched from above. Expression unreadable. Timers live. He said into the mic, 3, 2, 1. Down on the floor. 5 rifles and 1 unarmed observer vanished into the modular corridors, and the hangar swallowed the rest of the sound. The drill had begun, because in less than 3 minutes, she'd prove exactly how flexible she could be. Morrow was the first to take the bait. He moved in low, rifle angled for a center mass shot that would have tagged her out in an instant if she'd still been standing where he expected. Ward pivoted on the ball of her left foot, letting his momentum carry past her. Her right hand clamped over the barrel of his simunition M4, twisting it away from her body, while her left elbow drove into the joint of his arm. The crack of fabric and gear was loud in the confined hallway. Morrow's reflex was to resist. And that's exactly what she needed. She hooked her boot behind his ankle and yanked. He went down hard, the padded floor catching the impact with a dull thump before he could recover. She stripped the rifle from his grip, spun it 180 degrees, and tapped him twice in the chest with the training rounds. The ref's voice cut in immediately. Hit! Out! Morrow rolled to the side, muttering under his breath, and Ward was already moving. Varden came next, faster, more aggressive. He'd learned from Morrow's mistake, or so he thought. He tried to pin her against the wall, closing the gap to deny her room to maneuver. But Ward stepped into him, not away, her forearm sliding under his rifle and angling it skyward before he could fire. With her other hand, she seized a fistful of his vest webbing and pulled. Dropping her weight at the same time, Varden stumbled forward. His weapon caught between them, in one smooth movement. She twisted out of the line of fire, spun behind him, and used the captured rifle as a lever across his chest. The torque folded him backward into the wall. The muzzle pressed into his sternum close enough that even with munitions, the shot would sting for days. She squeezed the trigger once, hit, out. The ref's call was almost drowned out by the rising shouts from the observation deck. She didn't look up. Rin was already moving in. His eyes narrowed. He wasn't going to make the same mistake as the other two. His sling was adjusted tight, his weapon tucked in high for better control in close quarters. He fired once at her midsection as he advanced. The shot hit her plate carrier with a sharp thud, but before he could chamber the next round, she'd closed the gap. Her left hand jammed the rifle sideways, locking the charging handle against his gear. Her right hand gripped the sling strap at his shoulder and spun him off balance. Rin's foot caught the edge of the doorway. That was all she needed. She stepped behind him, wrapped her leg through his, and pulled. The two of them went down in a controlled collapse, her knee in the small of his back, one hand still on the rifle's pistol grip. With her free hand, she tapped the back of his helmet twice, the agreed-upon signal for a kill in this drill. Hit, out. The ref's call came again, this time with more than a hint of disbelief. Rin groaned, rolling to his knees as Ward released him. She rose smoothly, scanning the next corner of the Killhouse. Heart rate steady, breathing measured. Bangoy nga, 48 gyai. Now there were two Brax Mercer and Leon Dre. 3 down in under a minute, and the two most dangerous still standing. Mercer's jaw tightened. This was no longer a demonstration. This was survival of pride. He adjusted his stance, rifle raised, trying to corral Ward in the narrow Killhouse corridor. Ward's breathing was steady, her eyes fixed, her shoulders loose. She'd read men like Mercer before, the ones who carried authority like a shield and hated when someone punched through it. He advanced, weapon tracking, but the space that had been designed to favor the assault team now worked against him. Every step forward was a fraction of a second she could steal. She feinted left, drawing his aim just enough, then pivoted hard to the right. Her foot hooked behind his ankle as her shoulder slammed into his ribs with controlled force. The impact sent him sideways into the padded wall, the sound sharp enough to turn heads on the observation deck. His rifle clattered free. She caught it mid-fall, rolled it into a low ready grip, and had the barrel angled toward his chest before he could recover. Her finger never touched the trigger, but the message was clear. Mercer froze, breath ragged, his eyes narrowing with the sharp edge of reluctant respect. 62 seconds. Leon Dre was already moving. The chief petty officer came in low, his mass and momentum designed to drive her to the ground before she could reset. It was a calculated, aggressive entry, the kind that had ended plenty of fights in his favor. But Ward didn't fight it. She borrowed it, dropping her center of gravity. She caught his sleeve and forearm, pivoted on her hip, and let his own speed carry him past her. With a sharp twist and pull, she redirected his force into a clean hip throw that sent him airborne for a fraction of a second. Dre's boots were above his head. Then he slammed into the mat with a thud that made even the SEALs on the sidelines wince before he could recover. She was already on him. Her knee pinned his sternum. Her hand stripped the training pistol from his holster, and in one smooth, practiced motion she racked the slide and leveled it at his chest from less than 3 feet away. Dre's eyes flicked from the pistol to her face. He tapped the mat twice, clear signal out. 81 seconds. The whistle cut through the air, sharp and final. Silence fell like a curtain over the Killhouse. No one admitted it aloud, but every man in the Killhouse knew they'd misjudged her from the very start. That's when the slow clap began. It wasn't mocking, it was measured, deliberate, and it drew every head toward the observation deck. A tall figure in dress greens leaned against the railing, silver eagles flashing under the red lights. Colonel Dorian Hale descended the metal stairs with the kind of presence that made seasoned operators straighten without being told. Broad-shouldered, decades of command etched into every line of his face. His eyes missed nothing and judged everything. He stopped a few feet from Selina, studying her like he was replaying an old memory. Didn't expect to see Falcon back on the mats. The call sign hit the room like a shockwave. Mercer's head snapped up. Dre froze mid-motion. Falcon wasn't a nickname you earned teaching recruits. It belonged to operators whose missions never made headlines, where failure meant body bags. Selina's expression didn't change. Been a while. Sir. Hale's gaze swept to the 5 SEALs still scattered across the mat. Gentlemen, you might be interested to know that Staff Sergeant Ward here served as the primary close-quarters combat instructor for a Joint Special Operations Command unit, tasked with neutralizing multiple armed opponents in confined spaces. That was what? 8 years ago, 10-10. Selina said quietly. Hale's mouth twitched into a faint smile, which means she was perfecting the techniques you just got dismantled by while some of you were still figuring out which end of the M4 to hold. In fact, Chief Dre, his eyes locked on the man still sitting, I believe you've unknowingly been using several of her original training protocols in your own curriculum. The shift in posture was immediate. Mercer's arrogance evaporated. Rin suddenly found the floor fascinating. Varden swallowed hard, Adam's apple bobbing. Hale stepped closer, voice carrying to every corner of the Killhouse. Good to have you back. Sergeant, this base needs instructors who can demonstrate why their techniques work. Thank you, sir, she replied. Professional, with just enough edge to say she was done being underestimated. The colonel turned to the SEALs. As for you, gentlemen, I think a lesson in humility is overdue. You'll clean every mat in this facility properly. This isn't just about tactics. It's about respect for your fellow warriors. No one argued. Dre gave a curt nod. Mercer's yes. Sir sounded like it had been pried out with pliers. Hale's boots rang against the concrete as he left. Selina didn't linger to savor the win. She holstered nothing because she'd never needed it, collected her gloves, and headed for the exit. A few younger soldiers stepped aside. Their expressions changed, not curiosity anymore, but respect. On the deck, an instructor murmured, 81 seconds. Against 5 armed SEALs. Hell of a way to make a point, came the reply. Crossing the sun-baked tarmac. Selina kept her pace steady, neither rushing toward her next rotation nor dragging the moment out. She'd learned long ago respect earned in silence lasts longer than anything shouted. At the supply depot, a grizzled quartermaster glanced up from his paperwork. Heard you stirred things up in the Killhouse. Selina gave him the ghost of a smile. Just ran the exercise. Sergeant. That's one way to put it. She stepped back into the sunlight. Training elsewhere was already underway. Her moment in the spotlight was being absorbed into the base's normal rhythm exactly how she preferred it. Behind her, the sound of mops hitting mats echoed from the Killhouse. Some lessons took years to learn, others just 81 seconds.